Hey, what up? Thanks a lot for visiting my channel. I'll be that Sequential Geek. This is a mix of books I'm going to be showing starting off from 1972, the NYC Comic Art Convention Guide. All in all, given, I've got myself here, nice white spine. Oh, that bag's going to do it justice, but considering I paid $86 for this thing altogether, I'm not taking it out of the bag. This image of Vampirella I've seen often, and it's, to me, one of the classic Vampirella images. So I just wanted to note it's by José. When I was hunting it down, trying to see if there's any comic-related material I could find it on this program guide. So psyched to nab it. It was really difficult to get it in this VF Plus condition. It's really nice high-grade program guide from 1972. This is a gem, Tales to Astonish, issue number 9. Although this came out August 1980, this is a reprint of Herb Trimpe doing the cover, John Romita Sr. doing the finishes. The reprints from 1980. Originally, it's from 1969. Pretty cool. So a lot of these reprints from like Tales to Astonish, stuff like that, they might remove a page, they might remove some panels. I haven't read this yet, but we have an appearance of that serpent crown, kind of like in the vein of the Darkhold, where you have these elder gods that have these objects that they use to still connect with Earth, manipulate humans and stuff, have a conduit for their power to reach Earth. So the Egyptian god Set, I believe, is who these crowns are related to, but I haven't read this. I know that although we got Herb Trimpe doing the cover, this is Mary Severin. As you can see there on the art, Roy Thomas script. We're talking intrigue, we're talking drama, we're talking action. Got this still in the close-up mode a little bit, so you can see for somebody depicting life under the sea, it's not doing such a bad job, is she? Yep. Can't resist, because it's a great reader copy, I think. Some sun shadow along the edge of the pages that are yellowing. The cover is in pretty decent shape still, though, but it's very tempting to read this. I don't think I can resist, so I'm going to end up reading this eventually. Hello. He refers to this crown, though, like he doesn't know the name of it, where it comes from, what it can do. As you can see, like, she is wearing it. Tiger shark. His teeth. Namer must don the timeless helmet. Risk mere life for the sake of truth. Namer places the mysterious headpiece upon his brow. So they're not referring to it as this crown of Set. Although, I think that's him right there. Yeah. May 1984. The legend begins. A couple years earlier, there was a 3-issue limited series. 1982's Marvel Superhero Contest of Champions. In that 3-issue limited series, Marvel was experimenting with your 2, 3-issue limited series, 4-issue limited series, and they got these. So this is their first, I guess you could say, event without calling it an event. Jim Shooter wrote all 12 issues, although Bob Layton did the covers for 4, 5, 6, and 7. He did the interiors for 4 and 5. The rest is all Mike Zeck. And this is it. When this issue occurred, you had, say, like stuff like Amazing Spider-Man 252, when Spider-Man had returned from this world. They didn't even call it Battle World back then. I don't believe so. It was just the Beyonder world, the Secret Wars story. So when he returned in issue 252 of Amazing Spider-Man, like this comic is from September 1984. So even at this point, 252, so 4 months later, so we got issue 4 or 5 of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. He didn't get his black suit until issue 8. So even when you're reading this, he's got the black suit. He can turn into whatever clothes he wants. If it tears, it automatically seal. So then nobody knows what it is, how he got it. They just know everything has to do with Secret Wars. In issue, I think it's 265 of Fantastic Four that I showed a couple of videos ago, you got She-Hulk joining Fantastic Four, right? That happened. Iron Man 181, I did a review on that a few months ago. It shows Rhodey coming back from Marvel Superhero Secret Wars with some tech in his armor that he had acquired while being in Battle World, and he tests it out and finds out that Tony's in the hospital because of his drinking problem. That issue of Iron Man 181. He had no idea what was going on because he had just gotten back, but in issue 180, he hadn't left yet. He was probably at the end of issue 180 of Iron Man. They found that ring structure in Central Park and then disappeared. That's what happened in Amazing Spider-Man 251. X-Men number 180, right? They were still on Earth, and then in 181, they returned and they came back. Everybody's like, where y'all been? All right, so Jim Shooter wrote all 12 issues of this classic run when he was editor-in-chief for his tenure regime at Marvel. Decided to get this first appearance of Puma. Not like as a spec investment, by the way, just because I like Puma. But as a spec, I did get myself a sort of compulsion at this point. Damn. Amazing Spider-Man 256. So this is from 1984 September. Yeah, I would definitely say buy it in a newsstand. For me, okay, for me, 1983, it doesn't matter. Just get it in at least VF. 1984 and later, make sure it's a newsstand. But I got a deal on some of these, so yeah. That's right, first Puma. Puma, you don't know his Native American heritage. You know that he is from Arizona. Black Crow, that superhero, is Navajo, I believe. And that superhero is from Arizona. But I don't believe that they are related. Puma has his own tribe. He is a werecat, like a werewolf. So I'm thinking he is magic-based. Puma was originally hired by the Rose, Richard Fisk, son of the Kingpin. And then Puma realized how great Spider-Man was, and he decided to bail on that deal. Tom DeFalco was writing this, but then when the Secret Wars story was going on with issue 252, you had Roger Stern was writing very briefly at that point. He was finishing up his run on Spider-Man. Before he left, he asked John Byrne if it was okay for him to use the idea that Byrne and Claremont had when they were working on Iron Fist from 75 to 77, right? That Iron Fist story, they had considered creating an alien material, some type of alien that Iron Fist would use as clothing, some bioorganic matter that would automatically repair itself, so they wouldn't have to worry about writing how he got a new outfit, how he had to always repair ski or whatever he was wearing. So Roger Stern, before he left Amazing Spider-Man in 252, he asked if it was okay to use that idea for Spider-Man's black suit. But as far as it being this alien creature that becomes Venom, that was Todd McFarlane's idea later down the line. Amazing Spider-Man 399, Venom. Puma's first appearance, September 1984. I think Nebula's first appearance is Avengers 256. Or is it, wait, 257 is Nebula's first appearance. 255 is when John Buscema and Tom Palmer doing the inks. It's when those two teamed up with Roger Stern from Avengers 255 to 287. Yeah, Roger Stern started writing the Avengers in issue 227 when Monica Rambeau joined. So these are just me filling up my run of newsstand copies that are at least VF for that Roger Stern run. Yeah, Firelord making an appearance there, Herald of Galactus. This is the conclusion of that story arc right there for issue 260. And then after issue 260, you had, I'm finishing off triples of my Kang story run. Council of Kangs, first appearance there on the far left with Avengers 267. This 3-part story by Roger Stern and John Buscema. Strike Force Morituri, issue number 1, written by Peter B. Gills, art by Brent Anderson. Aliens with testicles as jowls called the Horde. Their native name is Vashak. The Vashak, they attack Earth. They don't take over Earth. They could if they wanted to, but they just want to terrorize the shit out of Earth, so whenever they come by here, they can take whatever resources they want. Like, they'll decapitate children on TV. Yeah. So don't worry. This is in the future. It doesn't happen yet. Still got time. And they got all this advanced technology on Earth to help them combat these aliens. For example, Strike Force Morituri. This one scientist, this doctor, creates this process, 2-step process. First, you have to go through their technology that they have that'll endow you with all these powers. But in order to become susceptible to even take that risk, you got to be between 18 and 21. You got to be in top physical and mental condition. And only 5% of those people survive that at that point, at that process. Then if you survive, which 5 people did here in this first issue, then when you survive, you have to go through the garden. And that doctor says how a vid comic that its kid has a story about this thing called the Danger Room. So he's making a reference to the X-Men. And he uses this knockoff of the Danger Room from the past, from our days, called the Garden. It's a very intensive, dangerous environment. If you survive it, and only 3 of the 5 do, you get to live for another year, because the process that gives you these powers, kind of like a Terrigen Mist in that first step, these random powers that you'll be able to wield. Since you're human, though, and you go through this grueling process, you still die. You have a year to live. This is taken from a quote, ancient Latin. During the Roman days, Hail Caesar, for those who are about to die. I don't know. It's a gladiatorial cry. Strike Force Morituri, we who are about to die. They got 5 people, and only 3 survive the garden. It's this Danger Room situation. It's supposed to put you under all these stressful conditions that'll hopefully unlock any of the abilities that you had just been granted. And even if you survive, like the 3 here of the first 5 that survived the process. I don't know what they call it. I call it the process. But yeah, of the first 5, only 3 live. And they get to fight testicle-jowled aliens. And we got time. These aliens, they invade Earth. They don't take over Earth. They could. I think the story goes is that they were, in their world, they had created global warming. They had created so much pollution and through all their excess that this alien, peace-loving alien race, super advanced technology came and helped them fix their planet. And then they turned on those peace-loving aliens, took their super advanced technology, these people called the Vashak, in Earth they call them the Horde, and they go and just ravage other planets so that they could terrorize those inhabitants, those other worlds, and then use their resources whenever they want. These aliens are so evil. The Horde, they will just terrorize the citizens. They don't want to take over the planet. So they'll do things like decapitate children, broadcast that throughout the world. Whatever they can do to try and make these inhabitants submissive. So there's your first testicle jowled alien. It was so odd. I mean, and this came out in the late 80s. Well, this first issue was actually covered December 1986. The first couple years, it's written by Peter B. Gills, this creator here, with the artist Brent Anderson. Yeah, there they are going through that process. That was another one of those aliens. The Horde. They're such bitches. Yeah, by the way, Strike Force Morituri. It's a great concept for stories about superpowered human beings. A unique take. 1987, you've got Mark Silvestri breaking into Marvel Comics. After this series, he will go on to do the art on the X-Men. So Roger Stern. Roger Stern is a really great superhero writer, great comic book writer. Enjoyed him throughout the 80s. This is a 4-issue limited series with the X-Men pit against the Avengers. I believe Asteroid M, Magneto's old home, orbiting the Earth, and crashed to Earth. And it landed in the Soviet Union. So he goes to retrieve some of his things, and then you've got the Avengers stepping in, and then you've got also people like Dark Star and Crimson Dynamo, because that Russian version of the Avengers, whose name eludes me right now. But back on the comic book track, they didn't have issue number 2. These are like mint condition, and I didn't want to just get a beat up copy of issue 2 just to fill it. So issue number 1, 2, and 3 are art by Mark Silvestri, written by Roger Stern. Issue number 4 is by Pollard. I think it's Keith Pollard, with story by Tom DeFalco. So now, X-Men 181 and 184. Like I was saying, issue 181 is the same month as Marvel Superhero Secret Wars issue 1. So in issue 180, the X-Men disappear. They find that ring structure in Central Park. If you touch it, go too near it, you disappear. You go to these structures floating in space. One of them's got villains, one of them's got heroes. The Beyonder, this unknown entity from another dimension, essentially another universe, wants to know who we are. So he pits the heroes and the villains against each other, says whoever wins can get whatever they want. That's how Marvel Superhero Secret Wars starts. Then he creates this battle world from chunks from all the worlds throughout the galaxy, our galaxy, our universe, something like that. And they have to fight on this world. The superheroes against the villains. Your classic villains, your classic Marvel superheroes for the next 12 months in this monthly comic. Pretty awesome. So the first issue, the X-Men pop back to Earth. They disappear at the end of 180. They pop back to Earth in 181. Nobody knows where they've been or what the heck they've been doing. We know that while Lockheed was there with them, he made a friend called Puff. And when Puff transported back with them to Earth, because the yellow rays of the sun or different dimensional frequencies, or I don't know, but Puff ends up turning the size of kaiju. Can't just say dragon, because dragon can be like twice the size of a bus. This thing's like the size of a small skyscraper. I mean, this thing's huge. So the X-Men are in Japan, and they also show Wolverine. He grabs a newspaper that the wind had caught, looks at it and goes, "We're in Japan." Some of the members of the X-Men are like, "Oh, I didn't know you could read. I didn't know you could read Japanese. You're so mysterious." Because this is May 1984. During May 1984, you can get away with that. when he makes little references like that. You had the first Wolverine limited series came out around this early 80s time range. Wolverine, he's a mystery, but then, the people at Marvel have already caught on that how the Chris Claremont dropping little clues about who he is, his backstory every year, every couple of years, little few panels, little remarks here and there that Wolverine will make. And once again, real great marketing technique. So as a fan, when you're at the comic book shops, you're like, hey, what was up with that? What did Wolverine mean by this and that? But, because the Wolverine 4-issue limited series, you probably already knew that he spoke Japanese. But yeah, the members were like, oh, you speak Japanese. That's really cool. So Wolverine, Man of Mystery. So that's written by Chris Claremont still. Art by John Romita Jr. I like John Romita Jr. in the 80s. Thought he was all right. No trouble picking up on his work, man. His sequential storytelling was cool. I dug his artwork. John Romita Jr., you're all right, man. And going through the back issue bin, I got myself issue 184. I just thought that was a cool cover when I found it in this real nice high-grade condition with no ticks on the spine. But I like the cover. Took it home, looked it up. Turns out that is not only the first appearance of Naze, the mentor of Forge, but yes, that is the first appearance of Forge. Storm's Lava. Forge, he created that handgun that was used by Henry Peter Gritch, a government agent, to depower mutants. He created a device to depower mutants. Well, Gritch uses that just after this issue to depower Storm. He was actually aiming it at Rogue, but I digress. Now, right here we got Forge's first appearance. Now, interesting to note about his mentor, Naze. Unlike Puma, Thomas Fireheart, we know he's from Arizona. We don't know what tribe he is, but Forge's mentor is Cheyenne. So we're talking like Wyoming area, and this guy Naze, he's not only a medicine chief, a mystic, he's also an ally of this omniversal guardian called Roma. Roma is the ruler of the multiverse. Roma works with Captain Britain. Side note, I wanted to note, that's the first appearance of Naze, mentor of Forge, first appearance of Forge in Uncanny X-Men issue 184 by John Romita Jr. and Chris Claremont. X-Men 181 takes place right when Marvel Superhero Secret Wars begins, May 1984. First appearance of Puff. Have not yet found the first part of the story arc in VF Plus condition in newsstand, but we got ourselves issue 233 and 234. And issue 233 starts off with the Brood. They're on Earth. They're laying their eggs inside of mutants, so that when they have those mutants transform into Brood, the Brood will inherit their powers. We got ourselves like an Aliens knockoff. When a Brood becomes a mutant that can breathe fire, as a reader, you say, I'll pay for that. That happens here. It's fucking cool. Great idea. Takes place in Denver, as a matter of fact. These 3-issue story arc. Logan having a bad day here. On the left and right, Mark Silvestri. 2 classic covers from Mark Silvestri for me. There's that one that everybody digs. It's got Wolverine. He's like crucified on this X. It also has like purple tones to it. And this one too. When you got your skeleton laced with an indestructible metal, it's kind of hard for your body to turn into a Brood. So that's the advantage of Wolverine. This healing factor. It's pretty badass. I think around issue 162. It's another cover where they show Wolverine fighting off the Brood. David Cockrum cover, I believe, from their first experience with the Brood. X-Men 234, the final part in the Brood on Earth story. 3 copies because I got a deal on them. First appearance of Genosha, don't you know, Sha? Yeah, that's Rick Leonardi artwork. Rick Leonardi, he wasn't the creator of Cloak and Dagger, but he did do the art on that first Cloak and Dagger 4-issue limited series. This is still written by Chris Claremont. We're talking November 1988. So by 1988, unlike in 1984, where if you drop something like Wolverine speaking Japanese and now he's so mysterious, got to read some back issues, find out why, you can get away with it back then. It wasn't common. It wasn't in your face. Like Robert Downey Jr. being connected with everything in Marvel Cinematic Universe that now influences the comics for some reason. But issue 237, 236, 237, they're in Genosha. They're finding out how mutants are being used as slaves in this fictional country. It's by Africa and Genosha. And Wolverine Storm hanging out in this issue. But in issue 237, because Rogue was going under all this torture, she regressed. And back in Avengers Annual number 10, when she was battling Captain Marvel, upon touching Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers' psyche, her powers, huge chunk of it contained in Rogue. So when she was being tortured, her mind regresses and Carol Danvers takes over. So Carol Danvers in this issue is now in the body of Rogue, so to speak. That psyche that Rogue had absorbed way back when. Well, let's talk about references to Wolverine's past and Wolverine having to be connected to everybody. It's a little bit too excessive because now Wolverine has a connection with Carol Danvers' past, I guess, because they're starting to make remarks about how they knew each other, quote unquote, back in the day. And then also in this issue, you find out it's written in that how Logan makes a reference to having been a slave at one point, been captured and used as a slave, and he knows what it's like. It's cool. I mean, the guy he's been living for a couple hundred years. You know what? I mean, I guess 150 years at this point. You're gonna be around the block more than once, right? But it's just the whole concept of like, you know, we got to make sure that people read this comic, and we got to make sure that, you know, people are aware, you know, of other characters in the Marvel Universe. So we got to link them with X, Y, and Z. In this case, it's with brand identity Wolverine. Not the superhero Wolverine, not the character Wolverine, not Logan, but brand identity Wolverine, Marvel Wolverine. It's too much. They might as well have, in the new incarnation of Wolverine that's coming out in the MCU, be Robert Downey Jr. Have Robert Downey Jr. play Wolverine. Of course, right? Who else would play Wolverine? Because we got to make sure that Wolverine's connected to everybody. And, you know, according to Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark was Spider-Man's mentor in the comics. Never happened. Never happened. Too much. And, yeah, it's a little rant for you about the current state of comics. Because, you know, I only do that once. Never do it again. It's not about the money. It's about Robert Downey Jr.'s X-Men, number 261. So the new Psylocke, the Jim Lee Psylocke, that occurred in issues 256, 257, and 258, that Mandarin story, that I decided to get one of the early issues of new Psylocke. And it's a Jim Lee cover, so that's cool. Early Jim Lee X-Men. Didn't read comics in the 90s. Didn't really get into Jim Lee all that much. Didn't really read comics all that much in the 90s. I'd say I bought a total of 5 comics maybe from the big 2, 4. 3 of them were Marvel, 1 was DC. So everything else was like from Fantagraphics. Occasionally I'd buy that, or Drawn and Quarterly, or just something indie. Some DIY shit I found. But I only went into comic shops in the 90s maybe a half a dozen times total. Stayed away from television, all that stuff. X-Force 54 and 76. The backstory behind why I decided to get these issues is just because I thought they were fun. This one I thought it was cool because you've got this dude, I don't even know who he is, just thought it looked cool. Domino versus Shatterstar, and also because I thought it'd be worth getting as a high grade newsstand copy, something that would be worth trading. Yep. Won't miss it. Don't know much about it. This one is a really high grade, like definitely I would say mint copy of X-Force issue 54. No significance with this. I mean, if you're a Usual Suspects movie fan, I think that's a Bryan Singer movie that he did, by the way. Which, then again, Bryan Singer, right? He went on to direct the X-Men, the first couple X-Men movies that came out first time they were ever in live action, so maybe that make a connection that way. I just thought of. But no, when I saw this is May 1986. Like a year after I graduated from college. I'd been living out in Seattle. This is probably one of the first Marvel comics I decided to get just to check and see what the heck they've been up to. Got this at the 7-Eleven. I remember it, on Stone Way. That was the same place where I got those Robert Downey Jr.'s cups many years later. The Iron Man movie cups that came out in 2008. That 7-Eleven was classic. It was a great spot just to go through, sift through comics for a minute. The line was too long. And that's it. This is just a real fun issue because it has some great nostalgic memories for me. Adam Polina doing the artwork. I don't know who that is. Jeff Loeb did the script, though. I don't know who this guy is either. The artist. Dan Morton did the cover, but Mike S. Miller did the interiors. But some 90s creators. Moving into the 90s, as you can tell. Some reprint right here. Wolverine versus Spider-Man. It's just a one-off issue at a newsstand because it's from the 90s. High grade. Cover date March 1995. This is a reprint of Marvel Comics Presents issues 48, 49, and 50. The cover of issue 49 of Marvel Comics Presents is the same cover, except the background is white with black webbing. Eric Larson doing the story and cover and interiors. Some 90s Eric Larson for you. Definitely not bad. Never got into these artists from the 90s and from Image. So check out the size of this promo comic from England. It's a little bit shorter than a regular comic book. The X-Men movie I Connect Special. The story is called A Rogue by Any Other Name. Set during the closing minutes of 20th Century Fox's Studios X-Men. Directed by the creator of the movie Usual Suspects. It's a Scott Lobdell story with Salvador LaRocca. Cover and interiors. I Connect Internet Services Provider, United Kingdom promo giveaway. Captain America issue number 2, Fight Terror. So this is a 9/11 Aftermath comic book. Written by John Nay Reber and art by John Cassaday. John Cassaday is known for doing Planetary, that Warren Ellis story. Highly recommend. If you're not into superhero comics, but you want to get into some form of science fiction aspect of comics that might be related to superheroes, definitely check out Planetary, written by Warren Ellis, art by John Cassaday. This 9/11 Aftermath comic is about how this terrorist group, in retaliation of Captain America killing their terrorist leader, decided to blow up a town in the United States. And as a result, Captain America on television, in shock and fury and so forth, he takes off his mask. I don't know if I'm necessarily in shock and fury, but he's just like, hey, look, there's no reason for people to be attacking other Americans, other towns. He takes his mask off and says, I am Steve Rogers. This is who I am. You had a problem, come to me. More concepts of people revealing their identity. Another new Marvel era comic. Got yourself a newsstand, another copy. Just love this. I mean, this is the type of stuff that brought me back to comics. Grant Morrison's new X-Men, Brian Michael Bendis's Daredevil, as well as his work on Alias. The issues previous to this I wasn't really into all that much, but the grit, the noir, film noir, the just like that aspect, the dialogue, it was just really awesome crime storytelling for this run of Daredevil that had art by Alex Maleev and Brian Michael Bendis. That combo is another artist-writer combo I strongly suggest you check out. Definitely the first 2 years of this, like 26 is the first issue. Obviously the newsstand edition, for some reason they didn't have a number in here. This sticker's on the bag, this little white deal here. But yeah, Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev, they were together until like issue 80 or 81, and then Ed Brubaker took over. The death of Wilson Fisk. You got this guy, Sammy Silk, some young gangster, mobster type. They end up often the Kingpin Caesar style stabbing him to death by the end of this. Sammy Silk, though, dies in issue 45 at the conclusion of the Lowlife story arc by Bendis and Malieve. At the end of that, Brian Michael Bendis had Daredevil become Kingpin of Hell's Kitchen, the head of Hell's Kitchen. Kind of lost his mind over a bunch of other stuff that was going on with him. One of them was the revealing of his identity to the world. He ends up going to court. Really intelligent written court case dialogue that Brian Michael Bendis pulled off in this Daredevil comic. He even had an appearance of Mr. Fantastic as a witness. More 9/11 aftermath. Civilian Justice. It's an indie comic. This guy, he's a regular citizen. Firefighter, I believe. So one shot. It's got like, there's 5 covers. You got a cover with both of these guys together, and then 2 more with each of them. A photo cover of the World Trade Center towers, and then I think some hollow foil cover. Yeah. Even by then, people were working the variant cover gambit. Craig F. Weick. Creator, artist, pencils, inks, and colors. Writer of the story, plot, and script. Cover artist. So I believe this came out a year after 9/11. 2002. Dedicated to all the fallen rescuers and victims of the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, Flight 11, 175, 77, the innocent, peace-loving Muslims, and to the brave civilians who took justice into their own hands against the terrorists on Flight 93. Hell yeah. May God bless your heroic souls and watch over your families left behind. This book is for you. Creator, Craig F. Weick. Yeah, Flight 93. It's got to be... It's not like the first and only time in history where American citizens directly thwarted a successful terrorist attack. I mean, the success would have been if it reached its destination. So, I don't know. My thought there, I think that's true. All right. Check this out later. It's a very cool key gem for me, this issue, because I dig on those 9/11 comics. It's been totally overlooked in history. Regardless of your take on it, definitely happened. Definitely changed the face of everything we're in. It was the step before the pandemic. The pandemic is just another step carrying over. So, yeah, civilian justice. We do not track, we defend, USA. Okay. All-Star Superman. Out of 2005, 2% of the comics, 2.5% in 2005 were newsstand. 5% of the comics were newsstand in the year 2000. High-grade copy of Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman comic with art by Frank Quitely. All the issues, every single goddamn issue. Can you believe it? They didn't change it up for some reason. God, heaven forbid. So that's a huge relief, by the way. The whole change up of artists, marketing something as some stellar creative teams, super talented folks, bringing you some new type of comic book series, and then when they change the artist on you, I find that a little underhanded, disheartening with the comic book industry that they do stuff like that. They kept Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely all the way through. If you work for one of the big 2 or any company, don't change up your artists. If you can't keep an artist for a good 6 issues straight, then don't even pull the trigger. My humble request as a fan who pays money for comics. Not new comics, though, because I learned my lesson about that bait and switch in more ways than one a while back. Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely, ends with the death of Superman. He has to go into the sun and repair it, work it, keep the sun going. You have all the tropes of Superman, like Samson and Atlas make an appearance here, a couple of the main legends of whom Superman is based off of. A lot of those icons were given props in this 6-issue limited series about the death of Superman. Very bittersweet story. Finishing off doubles of the first Strange Tales run. This ran for 3 issues, but I still was waiting for the B cover for issues 1 and 2. So it's 3 issues. You have all these indie artists that can gain success, notoriety throughout the 80s and 90s from publishers like Drawn and Quarterly and Fantagraphics, slave labor graphics, to just self-published works. Paul Pope did the cover for issue 1. Peter Bagg did the issue for number 2. Stan Sakai did the cover for issue number 3, and this is comprising of anthologies. Of all these indie creators, it's one-offs here. 1 and 2 are the only books to have 2 covers. The third one just has got 1. So although these guys came out in 2008, 2009, basically 2009, a couple years later, you've got Strange Tales 2, because that was so successful. The first cover is by Rafael Grampa. Jaime Hernandez did the second cover, and Ivan Brunetti did the third, just to give you more of an idea of the type of content range of indie creators that they had. And all of these people are your writer, artist, and inker on their own work. 2011, Strange Tales. I don't know if any of these Strange Tale 2's comics from 2011 have had variant covers. As far as I understand it, it's just these A covers for this 3-issue anthology series. Sandman right there making an appearance on the cover. Sandman. Ivan Brunetti, February 2011. Let's wrap up this haul with some Mark Millar, Brian Hitch, another creative team like Chris Claremont, John Byrne, like Roger Stern and John Buscema, like Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev. If I may suggest, the Ultimates, that series that came out during the new Marvel era, same time as that Captain America and Daredevil comic, like around 2001, 2002. They had rebooted the Avengers and called them the Ultimates under the Ultimate line, modernized them, made a 21st century version of the Avengers. So now, like 7 years later, this is 2008, you've got Mark Millar and Brian Hitch starting off on a Fantastic Four story run. Right here on the far left, right there now. That's their first issue doing the Fantastic Four. Millar, Brian Hitch, Neary doing the inks. Issue 554. The newsstands had these borders. That newsstand copy of 554 came out April 2008. There's the first appearance of Ted Castle, the co-creator of New World, this recreation of the Earth that this guy had made so that he could save everybody to have a place to go when... Not sure why. I think it had to do with global warming. I'm not sure. But turns out it was more of like an Ayn Rand type of world that this guy had set up for himself so that he could basically have all him and his top uber echelon of society have a place to go to, banning the rest of us fools. Well, Ted Castle's wife happened to be the ex-girlfriend of Reed Richards while he was going to university. She contacts Reed and says, "You got to help me out. My genius billionaire husband, Ted Castle's nuts." So that's his first appearance here in issue 254. First appearance of Old Man Logan. Fantastic Four, number 558, that newsstand right there. My man Doom on the cover. August 2008 cover date. And that is also the first New Defenders, an alternate future 500 years from now, where Earth is dying. Kind of coincides with how Old Man Logan, the Earth and his environment, was all like a big old dust bowl. I don't know if that was 500 years in the future, though. But you also have the first appearance of that baby as an adult. The baby that was at the end of the Old Man Logan run. That was from when it ended in Wolverine 72. And then you had the giant-sized Old Man Logan, that was the conclusion when Wolverine was walking off into the sunset with that baby Hulk. Well, you also have the first appearance here of Robert Bruce Banner Jr. Also the first appearance of Alex Ultron, another character called Psionics, this other character called Lightwave, who's from Zenla. And to wrap this up with a couple of Universal Pictures properties. What do you call, like Frankenstein, Vampire, Werewolf, Mummy? Those are all owned by Universal Pictures still, right? So your classic monster comics. So this first one, it's a reprint. It just came out this past fall, 2022, 50 years after its original printing in 1972. 1971, you had that House of Secrets, first appearance of Swamp Thing. So you've got a lot of horror comics that are taking full swing around this era, early 70s. This cover is by Art Adams, yet the interiors are by Gene Colan, and the stories by Jerry Conway. Tomb of Dracula, eventually of which we will see the first appearance of Blade in this comic, Tomb of Dracula. Becoming Frankenstein. This is not by Marvel, it's not by DC. This is a brilliant comic out of indie comics publisher using newsprint, by the way, 10-ton press. They have 2 covers for each issue in this 6-issue limited series, Becoming Frankenstein. I only got the B cover for the first issue. The covers and interiors are by Frank Sirocco. Stories by Mel Smith and Paul H. Biersch. Issue number 2. Issue number 4, ended up buying 2 copies of because I do things like drop it, like I just did, and got a little bend. Not color breaking, but bend. And yeah, this was at the shop because I'm such a klutz sometimes. So I bought 2. And it's black, so it's very prone to revealing any type of flaw. So I got 2 of those. $3.99 a piece. Unlike some other publishers of newsprint, these guys are not holding back on their price. Yet the interiors are outstanding. I'll show you those in a minute. Here's issue number 5. The last issue, issue number 6. You know, I tried getting it from their website, but I think issue number 6 came out January 25th. You can't buy it. You can't buy it off of, it's not available on 10-Ton Press website. Issue 6 is not available on eBay or Amazon or Hip Comic or My Comic Shop. Where is it? I'm guessing it's delayed. I don't think this series has been promoted, and so I don't think they sold out of them unless they had that low of a print run. I did order the trade paperback, so consider this like a notification. If you can't find all issues, don't worry, because there's a trade paperback of this that you can get. Real strong paper stock for this cover, not like most newsprint companies. So that's one thing that would drive that higher price. Copyright August 2022. So yeah, when I opened this up, I knew right away this is something that I want to get. I would call this quality artwork. I'm not saying anything. Everything of quality has to look like this, has to emulate this. It just looks like this person has done this more than once. This looks like this person has some experience behind their lines. So keep an eye out for the trade paperback. I don't think you're going to be seeing it advertised at your local comic shop. You're going to have to proactively go out and look for this, Becoming Frankenstein by 10-Ton Press. Yeah, still need that 6th issue. The elusive 6th Becoming Frankenstein comic. Here's issue 1, and here's issue 5. To wrap up this haul, people, going through stuff in the garage, I found this for fun, as a joke, to make fun of Ferrari and just for their own sense of humor. You know, he's not around anymore. I don't have him as a reference. It's been a long, long time since my father's passed, but he had a great sense of humor, and he's a pretty smart cat, mechanical engineer. And him and his friends in the car club, one of the car clubs that he was in, they, for a joke, they each made some type of sticker. He has a bunch of these. This one became popular with him and his friends, and the glare is making fun of Ferrari. And you know, I got the Star Wars sticker here. I got Starfleet, Star Wars, Star Trek, USA. Just want to put something up there that has like a big iconic meaning for me. Classic. Couldn't sure what to use. There you have it. Let's get this baby up there. Like right there, maybe. Yeah. Just when I thought it wasn't going to be possible to get this. Been working at this for a minute. Finally. Decades old sticker. Now that's made in the USA if this thing actually lasts. Hilarious. To wrap up my hauls, spent some money. Got myself my direct edition of the last chapter. The Chthon Possessed Scarlet Witch. Out of 1979. John Byrne worked on the Avengers in his second stint. A couple years earlier in 1977, John Byrne did the art for 3 issues of Avengers that Jim Shooter wrote. A couple years later, from issue 181 to 191, John Byrne works on the Avengers. The first appearance of a Chthon Possessed Scarlet Witch is in issue 186 that I showed off a couple hauls ago in my video about John Byrne, but I just wanted to get this third part in at least VF condition. Direct edition, 82 and earlier, you want to get something in direct, much lower percentage. 1979, 6%. 1982, 20%, and 50% were by 1986. A precursor to Dark Phoenix, John Byrne's Chthon Possessed Scarlet Witch, Avengers 186. The conclusion, his origin story about Pietro and Wanda on Wundagore Mountain. Scarlet Witch getting her Chthon on. Thanks a lot for watching. Stay safe, stay warm. This be my Sequential comic book haul 69, part 20. Until next time.